The Auburn Express. You are now listening to the War Report Longtown Podcast with your boy Ike Jones.
What's up, War Eagle War Report family? It's your guy, Ike Jones, and we are here. It's game day on the Plains, Auburn versus Ole Miss. The number 13 Auburn Tigers facing the number 22 Ole Miss Rebels right here on the Plains. The jungle's out there ready to go crazy this evening. Hopefully everybody is ready for this game today. We're going to talk about it a little bit here. It's going to be an interesting game for sure. Before we get too far into this, got to be making sure you guys do the necessary. Share the video out there on social media. Like and subscribe to this video as well. Let's get into talking about this matchup. We got 15-2 versus 15-2, 4-0 conference record for the Auburn Tigers, 2-2 conference record for the Ole Miss Rebels. Auburn's coming into this game, of course, on a pretty good winning streak, right? You know, done pretty well for themselves. Ole Miss coming off of a loss to LSU. And I think that this is going to be a matchup that favors the Auburn Tigers. If you look at the ESPN matchup predictor, you see a 92% chance of Auburn winning this game. And the spread on this is 12.5 points. But, of course, the big storyline, and it will be mentioned pregame a bunch by everyone. If it hasn't been mentioned already on the timelines 532 times, it will get mentioned during the game, pregame, is the return to Neville Arena for one Allen Flanigan, who is doing well over at Ole Miss right now. But it's going to be a great game, great matchup, a lot of emotion with both Allen and his dad, who are both former Tigers, coming back into Neville Arena to play their first game since moving over to Ole Miss for both of them. So it's going to be very interesting to see, just from an emotional standpoint, how that goes. I'm sure that the Flanagans will be fired up. I'm sure that the arena is going to give them some praise initially, but then a bunch of flack for the remainder of the game. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. For Ole Miss, the leading scorer this year has been Matthew Morrell. That's not really anything new. Matthew Morrell has been doing his thing for Ole Miss for a few years now. He's averaging 17.4 points per game, shooting 48% from the field and 73% from the free throw line. He's also an excellent three-point shooter. In fact, Ole Miss is one of the better three-point shooting teams in the league. They come in actually third in the SEC in three-point percentage. So going to be incumbent upon Auburn to be able to deal with what Ole Miss wants to present as far as their ability to shoot from three. When we look at that more specifically, let's go over here to Ole Miss on the season. They are shooting 39% from the three-point line this season. They have, let's take a look at this. 6 players who are shooting above 30% from three. The guy really for them that you have to look out for, other than the aforementioned Matthew Morrell, is going to be Jalen Murray, the point guard. Quick guard, he can definitely score points. He's averaging 14.6 points per game for them. And then, Matthew Morrell is right behind him again at 39% from three. So Matthew Morrell shooting 40% from the field, 39% from three. And all of those guys playing heavy minutes for them. And then right behind them, a guy who I was really high on, was hoping when he initially announced that he would go to the transfer portal, would potentially come over to Auburn to be able to help with the ability from a big man being able to shoot, was Jameen Brakefield. I like Brakefield a lot. Or Jamie, Brakefield. I like Jamie Brakefield a lot. I think he's a really talented scorer. He is shooting at 38% from three on the field. So, he's going to be they're going to want to shoot a lot, and they really want to make this a scoring contest for Auburn. And as far as offense is concerned, though, Auburn has done a really good job of being able to score points. I think it's going to be incumbent on Auburn to try to turn Ole Miss over. They have been a team that has done fairly well not turning the ball over. Against LSU, that wasn't the case, right? So we know LSU is one of the best teams in the conference in their ability to turn other teams over. That was a big point going into the LSU game, was that take care of the basketball, because LSU forces a lot of turnovers. Auburn forces a lot of turnovers. Right now, Auburn is forcing the third most turnovers in the conference. And so, this it's a team that is not wanting to turn the ball over, turned it over a lot versus LSU. Auburn needs to be in that same type of situation, same type of situation where they're turning this Ole Miss team over quite a bit in order to get them into a situation where their offense is not feeling as fluid. Now, when you look defensively for Ole Miss, they are a team that is really defensively, they are good, not great. They don't turn teams over a lot, but I mean, they're in the top portion of the conference as well. They're right behind Auburn in turnovers forced. But what they really do a really good job of is protecting the rim. They have two really good shot blockers in Musa Cisse and the guy who's leading the conference right now, Jamian Sharp, in shot blocks and blocks percentage. So two really great, both of those guys transfers in, doing good job with rim protection. So what they do is a lot of what you saw with the Walker Kessler days of Auburn, which is we're just going to be we're going to take chances out front, and we're going to try to go get turnovers, and we're going to, hedge against screens, all that sort of thing. But we want to funnel you guys down to shot blockers. And that's what they really want to do defensively, is funnel people into their shot blocking. So it's going to be incumbent on Auburn to do a couple of things, right? You're going to need to get the ball in. It's going to be interesting to see how Janai Broome works in the post versus two very tall and skilled shot blockers down there, whether or not he's able to get himself going. Whether I think you can pull Janai out a little bit and not really have to have him go back to the basket, even though that's where he's most comfortable. But make those guys get away from the rim, right? So this is where the revolution of what Bruce Pearl wants to do in his 5-out style offense is really going to come into play. Are they going to make those shot blockers have to guard out high? So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the matchup that Bruce Pearl puts out there and how they want to attack some very skilled shot blockers in Ole Miss. But again, this is not a team. They don't really function off of their defense to fuel their offense. What they do is they play solid defense and really funnel you again to those shot blockers, and then they try to get you frustrated and taking a lot of outside shots that you just don't really want to take. And I think that's going to be a big thing for Auburn too, is not settling for the outside shot. I think Ole Miss you might even see Ole Miss go to their matchup zone a little bit more in this game, where they can just allow Cisse and Sharp to patrol the paint and not really have to worry about coming out on any of the bigs for Auburn that want to step out and shoot the basketball. So I think that's going to be the chess match. You see a lot of matchup zone for Ole Miss today, trying to force Auburn into taking a lot of three-pointers, which means that when you have your shooters out there on the floor, I want to see a big game. The guard matchup in this one is going to be great already, but I want to see a big game from Aden Holloway from the floor in this one, because I think that he is a guy that has yet to really explode offensively. I'd love to see a 20-point game tonight from Aden Holloway to really get them out of that zone, or feeling like they have to do more out high against him, in that matchup zone, so that we can see some of the ball screen action with him getting downhill and getting to other shooters out there on the perimeter as he's able to facilitate. I know that Trey Donaldson's going to be really good in the facilitation portion, but he needs to knock down a couple of mid-range and outside shots tonight as well, to make sure that Ole Miss defense has to stay honest and not just, have guys at the rim waiting on guys and they can funnel guys to them. You need to be able to make some of those shots from the outside and the mid-range. Again, when we look at the two teams stacked up against one another, didn't talk about this in earnest, but we'll go back and talk and take a look at this, how things compare as far as offense, defense, points for, points against, all that. Ole Miss is scoring 77.8 points per game. Auburn at 83.8 points per game. Ole Miss is giving up 70.6 points per game, which is good. Again, they're a good defensive team, and good, efficient defensive team. But their defense efficiency rating is sixth in the conference right now. But Auburn only giving up 65.6 points per game so far. That is best in the SEC right now in the ability to shut down the other team. The field goal percentages are fairly even. Both of them 46%. Auburn a little bit higher, 46.7 to 46.1 for Ole Miss. Rebounding is, I think, a place where Auburn can really take advantage in this game, right? Because they have the shot blockers, and they really, I mean, when I say these guys are shot blockers, you see this a lot with Auburn. Actually, they're trying to block everything when you come to the lane. That means that they're going to be susceptible for offensive rebounds. So Auburn can really take advantage by taking a very Texas A&M approach of, let's just get shots up on the rim in close to the paint, right, and try to get it up over those shot blockers and crash the offensive glass. You should have opportunities because those bigs like to shot block a lot. So look for the offensive glass to be a factor in this one if Auburn's able to control that, because Ole Miss is ranked down at the bottom of the conference in defensive rebounding percentage. So they're not as good defensive rebounders because, again, they like to try to block a lot of shots. Offensive rebounding, they're not great at it. They're good, but they rank ninth in the conference. But as far as the rebounding differential, only about 4 total rebounds per game differentiates the two teams. When you talk about blocks per game, again, Ole Miss is up there towards the top of the conference, 6.6 blocks per game. Auburn at 5.6. And then steals per game, Ole Miss actually has more steals per game than Auburn, but Auburn from a defensive efficiency rating is better than Ole Miss just because they have more possessions in which they're being restrictive. You see a lot more shot clock violations, a lot more live ball turnovers for the Auburn defense, even though Ole Miss has more steals per game. So again, I think this is going to be a good matchup, but one that Auburn should come out with the victory because when you talk about depth, we always have to get into this when we start talking about these two. When we talk about any team matching up against Auburn, is you're going to get into depth situations, right? The rotation right now for Ole Miss, 1, 2, 3, 4 players up above 28 minutes per game. So they have 4 really heavy guys in their rotation, and then you get to 1, 2, 3, 4 more guys who have 15 plus after that. So they have an 8-man rotation primarily that they're going to be able to trot out there, but really a primary 4, and then they kind of adjust the other 4 in and out. So it's going to be interesting to see when Auburn goes to that second unit. You're going to be able to potentially go on a run there against this team because they're not going to be as good scorers, or they're going to be going against guys that have fresher legs. So I think that's going to be a big benefit to Auburn, as it always is their ability to be able to get out and transition with that second unit being fresher out there on the court. Offensively for Ole Miss, I think, this is a team, they run a pretty good, set of offensive plays. So it's going to be interesting to see how Auburn decides to defend it because Auburn does do a lot of switching. And of course, because they put their bigs in the high screen and roll action a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not you get, that's one of the benefits of having a guy like Jalen Williams, right, who plays the 4, but he can switch out onto a guard. It's going to be interesting to see what Coach Bruce Pearl and the scout decide to do against the high screen and roll action that Ole Miss likes to run, and whether or not they're going to be switching some of that stuff, or if they're going to try to trap the smaller guards, because the aforementioned Jalen Murray, their point guard, he is a smaller guard, quick but small. So are they going to try to trap him out high to force the ball out of his hands? And how are they going to do on the recovery on the back end with some of the action that they like to do? So looking forward to see this matchup, and looking forward to seeing all of you talking about this on Twitter. Make sure you're sharing the video, but make sure you're following your guy Ike Jones, because I will be providing a lot of great information for you during, or just analysis of what I see, and we'll definitely be back here for the post game. All right, let's get over into the comment section, see what you guys are talking about. Don't want to just have me talk. I want to hear what you all say. AU in the USMC says, War Damn Eagles 6 days, and I get to come home for good. Congratulations, just in time for some good basketball. Hopefully everything goes well for you in those final 6 days of your deployment. Chris S. jumps in and said, this is said this when he transferred. I hope Flan has 30, but Ole Miss takes the L. Listen, I wish him the best. I don't know if I hope he has 30, but I hope that he has a decent game. Just because I don't want to root against him, but I don't. I definitely want to see whatever happens with him be the most negative outcome for Ole Miss. So if it means he needs to have a bad game, God bless him. um, let's see here. Cool Breeze jumps in and says Dylan Cardwell and Jay Will most improved. I have to agree on both of these. Like, I feel like both of those young men have done a good job of elevating their game year over year. Specifically, Dylan Cardwell and his free throw shooting. I think if I'm voting a most improved player overall, it's Dylan. And even though I love what Jalen Williams has done, I think maybe because I saw this potential in Jay Will so much more, this is more realized potential that I'm seeing from him. Dylan, I think, just kind of struggled at points, and he's been solid this entire season, particularly on the defensive end, and his ability to just kind of patrol the paint and really be a solid shot blocker for Auburn. I talked about what Jamarian Sharp has been doing for Ole Miss as far as shot blocking. Oddly enough, Janai Broom is actually in blocks, the third on the. Let me make sure I'm looking at this correctly. In blocks, yeah, he is third in the conference, in blocks, which I wouldn't have expected to see. That I would have thought Dylan would have been higher on this list. Is this in? So this is in conference play so far. Okay, I'm just looking at kind of some of the statistics here. But anyway, yes, I agree with the most improved take there for Dylan Cardwell. Let's see here. Don Cullen jumps in and says, yeah, I really want to see Aiden take off. He is close. I do want to see an amazing game from Aiden tonight. I think it should be very interesting to see how Ole Miss decides to defend him specifically, as to whether or not they're going to, when you look at Ole Miss's defense, again, what they try to do is just funnel you to shot blockers, how they're going to try to go over the top on screens, or how they're going to play that to make Aiden, turn him into a driver rather than a shooter. I think he's a very willing shooter, though, so I think it probably makes more sense to turn him into a driver. Turn him into a shooter until he proves he can make a couple of them. But I think that they're going to try to turn him into a driver. And is he going to be a willing driver, getting downhill, getting to, again, the mid-range and getting all the way to the rim? He can shoot free throws well, so he needs to really be able to capitalize on that. I think that's the biggest thing when you talk about tournament teams and really good guard play, whether or not Aiden Holloway can get to the place, which, again, a lot of people don't give him enough credit for this, that Wendell Green was really good at, is understanding he shoots free throws really well. So late game, let me just put my head down and try to get to the rim and see if I can get a foul. If not, go in there and get a bucket. Aiden needs to be able to bring that to his game a little bit more, so that he's able to get himself to the free throw line a little bit more. And maybe that helps him to be able to get his jump shot a little bit more consistent in the flow of the game. Just see a couple of them go in from a shooting perspective, and then he can get into something a little bit more effective from the outside. Another one here from Don Cullen says, is anyone seeing this? Auburn wins the first half big, but loses the second half or ties. You'd think Auburn should run away in the second half, as much depth as we have. Yeah, I think that, this has been a problem for Auburn all season. It's not playing a full game's worth of solid defense, so they come out a little lackadaisical if they do run out on you in the first half of games. Ole Miss is not going to go away. LSU was very close to Ole Miss first half of that game, pulled away in the top of the second half, but Ole Miss made this a contest late, because they're just not going to go away. And again, they have the three-point shooting. This is something that I talked about as a fundamental difference between what you would see in the LSU game and what happened in the game versus Vanderbilt. Because LSU's able to shoot the three so well from so many different guys, you can't really ever just relax, because at any given time they could start to heat up from three, and a big lead can go away really quickly. Ole Miss is another team that will be able to do that for you, as they'll be able to weather some storms and go on runs themselves, because they can crank up their defense and they can get out and shoot three-pointers fairly well from multiple guys on that team. Again, shooting above 30% from three. When you've got that many 30% plus three-point shooters, it makes it easier for a team to be able to weather storms and come back. If the three ball's not falling for Ole Miss, it's going to be a very long night, though. Very long night if the three ball's not falling, just because Auburn plays defense so well in the paint this season. They've been giving less straight line drives up and all that sort of thing. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Auburn decides to defend against the three, and if they're going to sacrifice maybe some paint defense to be able to run them off of the three a little bit better. Auburn's 3-point defense so far this season, it's third in the conference, but I think it's been spotty at points against teams that shoot the three really well. So those guards being able to switch and do what's necessary to run people off of that 3-point line going to be very important tonight. All right. That is it. That's all I got for you guys today. I appreciate you all jumping in here with me. We will be back at you with the post game again tonight, talking about whatever the result is of this. No matter how late it goes, I will be here with y'all. So look forward to talking to y'all tonight. Make sure you share the video before you get out of here. Like the video before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.